Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today we're going back to the late 1850s to a farm in Ohio to a teenaged boy who spent maybe a little bit too much time in the family farm. Instead of working, he was reading books. His father often found him laying in a farm field, reading war books, looking at his hero, Napoleon. Yeah, you know who he is, George Armstrong Custer. How he got to West Point, which was a dream of his, involves the man pictured here, John A. Bingham. And there's a great story, a great account of how these two got together in a book of notes and diary entries that were compiled by Custer's wife, Elizabeth Bacon Custer. Wonderful passages about the relationship and how Custer got his start. So, without further ado, let me read you a little bit of this great information. Quote, politics and religion dominated the Custer household, and the lad learned early that a voter had influence if his father's party was in power. But the Republicans were the leaders in 1856, and he realized that it was of little avail to ask his father and his friends to try and obtain for him an appointment to West Point. At that time, there was no civil examination as now. Their congressmen were allowed to appoint a certain number to the military academy. There were then, as at the present time, many applicants. Fathers who had served their congressman earnestly when he ran for office did not hesitate to exact tribute when their turn came to want anything. What then had the lad to hope for as the age limit hung over him? After 20, he could never be trained a finished soldier. At 16, he dared all and wrote to the Honorable John A. Bingham, representing New Rumley and the district in Congress. Custer wrote, Dear Mr. Bingham, I am told that you can send a boy to West Point. I want to go there, and I hear that you don't care whether a boy is a Democrat or Republican. I am a Democrat, and I hope that you can send me to West Point, for I want to be a soldier. Yours respectfully, George A. Custer. Mr. Bingham replied June 4th, giving the necessary qualifications for cadetship, but added that he had already offered the appointment elsewhere. Should it be accepted, of course, he would have none to confer. June 11th, the lad replied from the normal school at Hopedale, giving physical requisites for admittance to West Point and ending his letter, quote, if that young man from Jefferson County does not push the matter, or if you hear of another vacancy, I should be glad to hear from you. Yours with great respect. Both letters are formal and somewhat stilted, but vigorous in penmanship. But it seems that Mr. Bingham was much too impressed with the manliness of the application, and out of 11 others, he chose the son of a Democrat. When he was 80, Mr. Bingham recalled, as he often had during his eventful life, for he was always in public life, our minister to China and a leader in his state all his days. In reminiscing, he called that the general my boy George, and said he loved him as he loved his own son, and confessed, quote, I had been in Congress but a short time when I received a letter from a boy that captivated me wonderfully. 40 years have gone by, but I remember it now. It was a boy's letter in a boyish hand, but the writing, despite the painstaking effort, showed a firmness of purpose, a determination to succeed, seldom apparent in one so young. And I was struck with the originality and blunt honesty of his expressions. In January, Mr. Bingham wrote from the House of Representatives, sending the conditional appointment to West Point to be signed by the recipient and approved by his father. He directs him to sign the printed instructions and return them to the Secretary of War and report at the Academy between June 11th and 20th. Then this busy man, writing his own letters, did not sign without a word of tenderness that marked his whole acquaintance afterward, but wished him health, happiness, and success through life. He goes on, this is Bingham. Bingham goes on to recall the first meeting with his protege. Quote, the years, full of cares and responsibilities, hurried by until just on the eve of my boy's graduation. The war, long threatened, became a terrible reality. Men with some knowledge of tactics of war were needed to drill the raw recruits rushing from all sections of the North to the country's defense, and all the available material at West Point was put in the field to officer the regiments being mustered into service. So it happened that my protege came into command of men when he was yet a boy. I did not see him till after the first battle of Bull Run. After that battle, he was promoted for bravery. A leader was called upon to stop a retreat and take a company of panic-stricken soldiers across a bridge held by the enemy. Like Napoleon at Lodi, young Custer sprang to the front and led the charge. The bridge was taken, and the boy officer became a hero. I read of his brave action. When the troops came back to Washington, I made an unsuccessful effort to find him. One day, a young officer came into my room out of breath and, with some embarrassment, introduced himself. Mr. Bingham, I am the boy you appointed to West Point. I have fought my first battle and tried hard not to be a coward. Since it was through you that I got the chance of becoming a soldier, I figure as my first duty to make my report to you. How proud I felt of him. It seemed as if one of my own blood had taken his life in his hands to do and dare, perchance to die for the homes and firesides of his country. From then on, I watched him go up, become a brigadier general in 2 years, the youngest in the army, a major general in 3. Never shall I forget the day he came to me in full brigadier general's uniform, bringing his bride. As I took the young wife's hand, she looked into my face and thanked me for opening the way for her husband's career. Up he went, never a cowardly action, never a mean deed marring his war record. Courteous to his friends, magnanimous to his foes, just and true and noble in every relationship of life, he was the most manly man, the most soldierly soldier, the most heroic hero I ever met. So there you have it. The words of John A. Bingham, Republican Congressman of Ohio, talking about George Armstrong Custer. We'll see you on the trail next time. Until then, take care.